Mage is speechless when he finally gets to the scene. The Cyclops is dead, and he can't wrap his head around how Minjun managed the shot that ended it all back there. Everyone's going wild hearing the so-called newbie, straight from a level-up manhwa, finished in under 2 minutes. They can't believe Minjun just downed a fully fed Cyclops single-handedly, especially since everyone figured it had to be a total fluke. Dongjun eyes him with concern, asking if he's hurt or feeling weird at all. But Minjun just calmly replies that he's totally fine. Hearing that, Dongjun's tension eases a little, and asks Minjun how he managed to beat the Cyclops. Minjun flashes a grin, saying it's all thanks to his training. Meanwhile, Corporal Kim Guangshik watches the whole scene unfold, just fuming. One of the dudes suddenly mentions the bet they made, pointing out the rookie actually won. Guangshik whacks the guy from behind and snaps, asking if he has a death wish. He screams that the situation wasn't fair, so the bet is off. There's no way the rookie could have finished faster than him. Guangshik insists that during special firearms training, each soldier is meant to defeat 2 monsters before the endpoint, and he did exactly that. According to him, the newbie only took out 1, so the win is void. Guangshik keeps ranting about how unfair this all is, claiming if he'd only faced 1 monster like Minjun, he would have been way faster. He starts screaming at Dongjun, demanding to know if this isn't totally biased. He pushes harder, even threatening him to speak up. Dongjun pauses, clearly irritated, while Minjun watches this whole mess. To him, Guangshik seems like a total tool to Minjun. Sure, the situation was a wild card, and even though Minjun took down the monster bare-handed, he wasn't planning on clinging to the win or rubbing it in. He was ready to let the bet slide, but seeing how Guangshik's acting, he's just stunned and disgusted. The kid even had plans to forget the bet entirely, but he couldn't get why this punk was taking it out on Private First Class Dongjun instead of him. As the tension builds, Sergeant Lee Seung-ho steps in and just shuts it down. He tells Corporal Guangshik to be ashamed of himself, pointing out the newbie took the biggest risk of them all. Seung-ho explains that Cyclops monsters are usually passive, but once they go berserk, their danger in this level-up manhwa is on another level. He makes it clear everyone saw Minjun handle something way more intense than what Guangshik faced. Then he calls him out for being a sore loser when everyone knows the truth. That totally catches the crowd off guard. Nobody saw Seung-ho stepping into this. Guangshik snaps back, asking if Sun-ho is just trying to show off for his juniors. But Sun-ho shuts him down, saying Guangshik's the one looking desperate right now. Guangshik tries to brush it off, telling Sun-ho to quit embarrassing him and claiming he was only joking. But Sergeant Sun-ho shoots back, asking if everything that doesn't go Guangshik's way is just a joke. He adds with a smirk that it's funny how getting a higher rank makes all the stubborn mules who used to boss you around start acting really obedient. That line hits hard. Guangshik looks totally ashamed, unable to think of a comeback. This definitely satisfies Mjun. While Corporal Kim Guangshik just stands there in shame, Sergeant Seung-ho asks if he has anything else to say. Like a nervous wreck, Guangshik mumbles that it's nothing. Sun-ho just nods, saying, "It's better that way." Later, during their evening patrol, Kim Mjun and Dongjin talk about how Sergeant Lee Sun-ho had once received a rare 2-rank promotion, a special case for someone who scored the highest on the advancement exams. It used to be a legitimate path, but the system got scrapped after a staff sergeant who'd received the same kind of fast-track promotion caused a huge accident in a dungeon. Sergeant Sun-ho ended up being one of the last people ever granted that kind of jump. Mjun asks if there's really no way to get a special advancement anymore, and Dongjin replies that, while there are exceptions, like rescuing a civilian during an emergency or pulling off something incredible during a monster hunt, those situations are extremely subjective. He explains, it's better to just assume the rule doesn't exist, since barely any hunters have advanced that way. Mjun takes that to mean the commander has the final say. The guy's clearly desperate for that level-up manhwa style of advancement. Not that he's wishing for civilians to end up in danger. Still, what puzzles him more is how strangely quiet this place is, considering it's supposed to be overrun with monsters wreaking havoc every day. The kind that wiped out the entire North Korean army. Mjun keeps thinking that 2 days is more than enough. He's already itching to advance, even as a private. Dongjin tells him he's doing great and will be promoted soon, then asks if he's even paying attention. Right then, Mjun wishes a gate would just appear out of thin air. A sudden announcement blares from the command center's speakers. It's an emergency alert that a swarm of middlebats is closing in on the oil reserve, and all available hunters are ordered to respond immediately and deploy the protective shield without delay. The announcement keeps repeating, grabbing both Dongjin and Mjun's attention. Mjun's eyes light up with excitement as Dongjin tells him to hurry up. Middlebats are bat-type monsters, about the size of children, known to live in colonies. While they're not especially threatening one-on-one, they're fast as hell and have the ability to spit fireballs. That makes them especially dangerous around an oil reserve. If not handled fast, the whole military base could go up in flames. Meanwhile, 2 hunters already stationed at the reserve are locked and loaded, scanning the skies and counting the bats. How the hell these things managed to show up here? One hunter warns the other not to fire anywhere near the oil reserve, asking what they'd do if the bats went wild and caused an explosion. The other argues they can't just stand there doing nothing, but his partner insists they wait and monitor the situation for now. The report is in, and someone should be showing up soon to install the protective shield. Still, both of them are clearly on edge, uneasy about the risk. Just imagining what could happen if those bats spit fireballs before the shield is up makes their blood run cold. They keep debating what to do, still confused as to why the bats appeared at the oil reserve. Just then, Minjun shows up and casually announces that he'll draw the bats' attention. Both hunters freeze in shock, knowing he's a rookie from the second company, and they have no clue what he plans to do without any gear. But Minjun brushes them off, saying he has no time for gear when his precious guests, the monsters that will help him advance, are already here. He's all set to earn the title of the private who single-handedly stops an emergency that could have wiped out the entire military camp. And best of all, he gets to hog every last bit of experience for himself. Like the star of a level-up manhwa, he knows the bats want his demonic energy, and now they're all his. On the other hand, the nearby hunters scramble to set up the equipment and make sure nothing gets wrecked. But as soon as they spot Minjun out in the open, they stop cold. Sergeant Sunho sees them spacing out and yells at them to get moving and finish installing the shield. The hunters stammer, pointing at Minjun, who's already out there brawling. That just makes Sunho angrier. He snaps that Minjun is doing all the work while they're just standing there gawking. The hunters quickly apologize and get back to it. Minjun thinks this is taking way too long since he has to tear the bats apart one by one. Sergeant Sunho runs over, shouting at him to lower his stance and fall back, demanding what he's doing out there without even a bulletproof vest. But Minjun isn't budging. He's convinced this fight is his, and he's not about to hand it over. Then his eyes lock on the electric fly swatter in Sunho's hand, and he lights up with excitement. Right then, Sunho suddenly drops to his knees, clutching his stomach as it acts up. Minjun asks if he's okay, and the sergeant barely manages to say he is. Minjun uses that moment to ask for the electric fly swatter, but Sunho refuses, telling him again to fall back. Minjun just grins and tells him not to worry, promising he'll be back in a flash after taking care of the bats. The moment he grabs the swatter, his face lights up like Christmas morning, and he dives right back into the fray. Sunho watches in disbelief as Minjun begins overpowering the middle-tier bats with ease, swinging the swatter like it's a legendary weapon. Suddenly, one of the bats spits a fireball, and everyone nearby freezes in terror. Without hesitating, Sergeant Sunho commands everyone to open fire, saying he'll take full responsibility for what happens. But Minjun stares the bat down and taunts it, saying, "If the bat has no idea what happens when you play with fire, it's about to get torched." Everyone is floored by how high Mjun just leaped, wondering how the heck he managed something like that. A few hunters announce that the protective shield has been activated and remind everyone to secure the cables. They're still asking how much longer it'll take to gather all the middle bat carcasses. Sergeant Sunho salutes his superior, who responds with a nod, saying they've done a solid job. He then asks if they figured out where the bats came from, since none of them even showed up on the radar. The commander looks around and asks who managed to roast the bats so perfectly and how many there were. Sunho answers that there were 30 in total and admits he's also curious where the commander had been during all the chaos. The operations officer on duty, Captain Song Jun-shik, explains that the battalion commander is supposed to be arriving shortly. Even though the guy doesn't specialize in combat, it's still not right for an awakened executive to be totally absent during an emergency and only show up once everything is over. Sunho figures he was probably just lounging in the control center, watching the monster radar the entire time. Jun-shik asks Sergeant Sunho if he's the one who roasted all the bats, and says he'll report it to the battalion commander. Sunho quickly replies that it wasn't him, when Jun-shik follows up asking if anyone else in the battalion is skilled enough to do that with an electric baton. Sunho explains that it wasn't just about the ones taken down with the baton. All 30 bats were defeated by one person, like a real-life level-up manhwa. He tells Jun-shik to make sure that's what gets reported. Jun-shik is stunned, asking again for clarification since all the other executives were off duty. If it wasn't Sunho, then who could it possibly be? Just then, Minjun strolls over, salutes Sunho, and casually hands back the electric baton he had borrowed. He then asks with a grin if that thing happens to be expensive. The next day, in the battalion commander's office, Sergeant Sunho is questioning Minjun, asking if he's someone who has re-enlisted. Minjun shakes his head and says no. Then Sun Ho asks if he's a regressor or something. And again, Minjun denies it. Sun Ho sighs and tells him not to pull any reckless stunts like he did yesterday ever again. He warns that while he might have gotten lucky this time, a hunter can't ever predict what might happen next. Minjun, thinking to himself that it wasn't luck at all, decides it's best to just keep his mouth shut. Sun Ho explains that, as he probably knows, the Hunter Corps is a special unit, and everything about it is different, starting with the size of the divisions, which only consists of 4 battalions. Even those battalions have way fewer troops than regular military units. Minjun thinks to himself that's obviously the case since not all awakened re-enlist, but he still doesn't understand why Sun Ho is bringing it up. That's when Sun Ho asks if he knows how all of this is possible. Minjun stares back, completely clueless. Sergeant Sun Ho says that every single person in the Hunter Corps is awakened. While not everyone is out there fighting, quite a few officers specialize in areas like administration, monster theory, tactics, and weapons research. But they're all awakened, too. He explains that in the Hunter Corps, moving up is all about your skills and what you get done. Meanwhile, Minjun's thinking they called him into the commander's office bright and early, so he figured some good news was coming. But now, he's just irritated. This is more of a boring debrief. He should have known not to get his hopes up. Shang Ho glances at him, asking if he expected a medal just for being summoned. Then he tells the kid to stay focused, adding that the top monster-slaying hunter from the 104th Division is visiting their battalion. A car full of tough-looking dudes pulls up to the Hunter Corps base, and Colonel Lee Jun-bang, the 2nd Battalion commander, steps up to salute the arriving guests. Beside him are Captain Seo Jong-won, the 2nd in command, Captain Song Jun-shik, the operations officer, 2nd Lieutenant Kim Cholman, the 2nd platoon commander, and Sergeant Lee Xiong-ho, the 2nd squad leader. All of them stand at attention, sharp and totally focused. Shung Woo walks up and shakes Sergeant Shung Ho's hand, saying he's heard about how coolly he handled yesterday's incident. He praises Sung Ho's work, and Sun Ho respectfully thanks him. Meanwhile, Kim Mjun is sizing up Sunung Woo, thinking the guy definitely gives off a powerful presence. He's dying to know just how strong a 2-star officer is, like a hero from a level-up manhwa. Surdu then turns his attention to Minjun and asks if he's the guy. Myun confirms, and as Surdu shakes his hand, Myun instantly feels the insane power in his grip, leaving him completely stunned. Then the big guy starts patting Myun's back like he's his favorite pet, telling everyone to chill out and relax. Surdu tells everyone to stand at ease and asks if they've pinpointed the gate where the middle bats came from. Sergeant Sun Ho reports that it's on a hill about 1.2 kilometers north of the battalion. The sergeant explains the area is now off-limits, and they're working to identify the gate's rank. Surdu instructs him to report directly to the division commander once they get confirmation. Next, the big shot asks if there was a problem with the radar. Captain Junshik responds that the alarm didn't go off until the bats were practically breathing down their necks. He adds that it doesn't seem like a mechanical failure, but they're now checking for any possible blind spots. Surdu says, if it isn't a malfunction, then the problem might have been the sheer number of monsters that slipped through, ordering them to inform divisional ordnance and install 2 additional radars. The officer gives a sharp yes sir, while the atmosphere stays totally tense. After that, Surdu turns to Minjun, acknowledging his bravery and quick thinking during the incident, but reminds him to be more careful next time, and, at the very least, not to forget his equipment. Minjun apologizes politely. In his head though, he's thinking if he'd brought his gear, the whole battalion might have gone up in smoke. But Surdu tells him not to sweat it, saying he's just messing with him, then asks if it's true that Minjun took out 30 middle bats all by himself. Myun just nods and confirms he did. Surdu praises him, saying if he hadn't acted so fast, the entire oil reserve could have blown sky high. Everyone standing there remains on edge, unsure what's coming next. Then Surdu announces, Myun has a gift from the division commander and congratulates his advancement. He explains that normally, there's a lot of red tape, but when a soldier achieves something outstanding, they deserve to be rewarded on the spot. Minjun thanks him sincerely. Surdu then orders Shung Ho to immediately grant Minjun a 3-day, 2-night vacation. Sunung Ho agrees instantly. The kid just lights up. He expected to get promoted eventually, but never imagined it'd be this fast, and now a vacation? Suddenly, this military life ain't looking so bad. As they walk, Kim compliments Minjun for doing a great job, mentioning that he hasn't even had a real chat with him since his recent transfer. Yet, Minjun has already made such a huge impact. He adds that thanks to Minjun's actions, he even snagged a commendation. Minjun thanks him, and Kim asks if it's his first time home since enlisting, and what he'll do outside. Minjun's eyes sparkle with excitement, saying he's obviously gonna play Dungeon Power Fighter at the PC room. He figures that even if he goes home, he'll be in a dead zone with no internet, so he might as well spend the next 3 days and 2 nights gaming instead of wasting time traveling. He arrives at the PC room where 2 guys are deep in conversation. The big fella asks the cranky dude if he went there again, and the guy groans, telling him not to even start. He complains the soldiers are so cheap, it's not like he was planning to go inside the cave. He just wanted to pick some pine mushrooms around there. He says he already got permission from the mountain's owner and even paid the fee, so he doesn't get why they're stopping him. The big guy replies that Chang went there before the area was locked down and came back saying the whole mountain reeked of something toxic. He adds that he had a headache for days, so, if this dude plans on going back, he's definitely asking for trouble. The doofus in the green cap says he'll just go with a mask or something. Suddenly, Minjun asks where that place is, which startles them both. They end up giving him a ride to Haiyan, and Minjun thanks them for the lift. They tell him they can't go any further, or the soldiers will bust them, asking if he can handle whatever's going down on that mountain. Minjun tells them not to sweat it. The restriction will be lifted by tomorrow, so they can head back to the mountain soon. The guys tell him to be careful and not to drop their names if anyone asks. Minjun assures them he won't. As he walks, he wonders how he ended up in Haiyan instead of spending his vacation at a PC room. That's when he catches a familiar scent, just like in a level-up manhwa. It's demonic energy. Minjun notices the security near the mountain's entrance is pretty tight, but surprisingly lax closer to the dungeon itself. In that case, he figures it's better to stay low-key, especially since he's still just a private. The soldiers at the cave entrance suddenly get hit with stomach aches from the purple smoke Minjun is leaking, which is enough to corrupt them. One of them says he'll try to hold it in, but quickly taps out, apologizing and admitting he just can't fight it. He tells the other soldier that nobody's gonna show up here anyway, so they can handle their business and be back in a few. It'll be fine, the other guy agrees. Kim Mjun spots the perfect opening and ducks into the cave. The kid doesn't sense any monsters, but the demonic energy feels crazy dense. Still, he couldn't care less, so he dives right in. His demonic energy stat starts climbing by 1 point, and he's blown away by how fast it's rising. The dude pushes deeper into this toxic spot. Once it hits the threshold, his corruption skill gets an automatic upgrade, and he even unlocks a new skill, Night Walker. Minjun feels like he hit the jackpot, finally resembling Lumi Nuna, his favorite character from a level-up manhwa he once modeled himself after. With 60 strength, 60 agility, 60 stamina, and 15 demonic energy, things are looking good. Now, equipped with 2 skills, Corruption and Nightwalker, our boy's genuinely stoked to get free demonic energy and a super useful new ability. Nightwalker summons a familiar made of shadow, a trick he used all the time back in Isgard. That sneaky little guy is a pro at assassinations, thriving in the dark and staying out of sight. Of course, it constantly eats up his demonic energy, but it's totally worth the price. When he activates it with a simple emerge, he says, and disappointment. The familiar looks pathetic, like a stiff breeze could blow it away. Its way. Minjun wonders if this is a side effect of dimension hopping, or just his low demonic energy stat holding it back, down. But after a second, he rethinks it. This tiny, shriveled form isn't useless at all. In fact, its small size makes it perfect for melting into shadows and staying unseen. It's not flashy, but for stealth, it's already pulling its weight. Kim Mjun throws a salute, announcing he's back from vacation. Everyone around just stares in surprise, asking if he's seriously the hunter who ranked up faster than anyone in history. Someone else pipes up, asking if it's true the division commander personally gave him a vacation and his badge. Minjun just nods, confirming everything. Then the whole group starts gushing over him, clearly impressed. The kid just plays it cool and then spots Dongjin and casually hands him a bottle of moisturizer, saying he brought it back. Dongjin smiles, saying he really didn't have to, but thanks him anyway. That's when Kim Gwanjik strolls over, grinning, and cracks a joke about their little bromance, saying it's not like Minjun was deployed overseas. Then he asks if Minjun brought the maxim he asked for, and Sparky tosses it right over. Minjun and Dongjin keep on chatting, and Dongjin jokes that he'll have to use honorifics if Minjun makes corporal. Sparky shoots back with a confident smirk, saying there's no if about it. Then, Sergeant Cho, the red-headed loudmouth, says he happened to see the advancement exam list while passing by the admin office, and Minjun's name was right there on it. Sergeant Sawyer Kim, the dude in the blue jacket, is floored, pointing out that the application deadline was way before Minjun even transferred in. Cho raises an eyebrow, wondering if the division commander pulled some strings to get it pushed through, cause there's no other way the timing works. Sergeant Kim says it's flat out impossible since it hasn't even been a year since Minjun enlisted, so he technically shouldn't even qualify. The guys around start murmuring. A buzz goes around, Shocked the unit's so-called rookie is already taking advancement exams. They wonder if that's even legal. But then some wise guy points out that since Sparky's a private first class, he's not technically the new guy anymore. Minjun casually drops that the training commander gave him a special deal, which just stuns the whole group. Sergeant Cho squints at him, asking if he seriously came to the front lines just so he could start taking advancement exams a year early, calling him an absolute lunatic. The red-headed sergeant isn't joking, either. Sergeant Kim adds that since Minjun's already a private first class, his eyes are obviously set on Corporal now. He shakes his head, saying, if the kid actually passes, then he's 100% nuts. The room just erupts in laughter. Sergeant Kim goes on to mention that candidates for this Saturday's advancement exams have their orientation and specialty weapons training starting tomorrow, so Sparky better get ready for some pain. Sergeant Cho chuckles on his way out, telling the kids to have fun. He and Sergeant Kim leave together, still chatting and laughing as they go. Cho asks Sergeant Kim if he's not taking the advancement exam himself, and Kim just shrugs, saying there's no reason for him to stay in the army any longer. Meanwhile, Sparky's deep in thought, wondering about the specialty weapons training. He's curious if it involves more than just standard firearms. At the Hunter Advancement Examination orientation, the officer up front tells everyone to pipe down and pay attention. He says they're running through a quick orientation for the exam tomorrow. For those who've taken it before, he warns them not to zone out just because they know the drill. He wants everyone focused for the first-timers. The officer then explains, the Hunter Corps Advancement Exam consists of two main parts, a written test and a practical test. He reassures them the written part is basic, even easier than a driving test. Minjun tunes that part out immediately. His eyes are locked on the practical section, which includes a stat test, specialty weapons proficiency, and monster handling. This whole thing feels like some level-up manhwa. Passing is already a done deal in his mind, but now he's thinking if he gets perfect scores, there might be some perks. That thought alone makes him sit up straight. Maybe it's time to stop coasting and take this a bit more seriously. The coach announces they're starting specialty weapons training. Everyone gathers and snaps to attention on the field as he orders the privates and private first classes to pick only swords. Then he turns to the corporals and tells them to grab their personal weapons and head farther downfield for their separate training, warning them that if he catches anyone slacking off, they're pretty much dead meat. Furthermore, he explains he'll be teaching the basics of swordsmanship straight from the Hunter Corps Combat Manual, but he also makes it clear that just blindly following the manual won't do them any good. Instead, he encourages them to use the Corps' techniques as a foundation and then build their own unique fighting style. Everyone shouts back, totally on board. He stresses that the basics matter more than anything, so they had better keep their eyes glued on him. And focus. Mjun gets it immediately. This is specialty weapons training because going into battle with only rifles would be completely idiotic. As everyone starts swinging swords, he quietly compares their moves to what he learned back in Isgard. Honestly, the swordsmanship there might be better, depending on its application. Mjun starts practicing and just like that, jaws are on the floor. His movements are sharp, clean, and precise, so much so that the others can't believe their eyes. The coach yells, "Stop," and calls Kim Mjun up to the podium. Facing the group, he notes that most of their sword movements still look stiff and clumsy. He tells them all to take notes from Private First Class, Kim Mjun. The whole squad goes silent, eyes locked on him as Minjun steps forward and runs through the sword forms again, each swing cleaner and more precise than the last. Eventually, Mjun gets a bit tired and drops into a seat, wondering why he's the one performing when he isn't even the training officer. He wipes sweat from his forehead, grumbling to himself about the heat and questioning if it's actually going to snow, like the forecast said. Sarah walks over, praises him for nailing the routine, and casually hands him a sealed packet, telling him to eat it later, alone. Minjun stares at it, confused, wondering what kind of guy just carries random stuff like that in his pocket. Just then, Dongjun approaches, complimenting Mjun's form, and asks if he can get a closer look at it during the break. Mjun is caught a little off guard. He didn't expect that kind of request. Dongjun adds he knows it's Mjun's first official training day with them, and it's obvious the sword is his specialty weapon, but for him, fighting monsters with one never felt natural. He politely asks again if he can study Mjun's movements for a bit. Mjun replies that if Dongjun needs his help, he can take all the looks he wants. As he watches Dongjun move through the sword forms, Mjun notices right away, this guy has been training seriously. His technique is solid, following the standard hunter swordsmanship form to the letter. The issue isn't his movements, it's his confidence, and that just so happens to be Mjun's specialty. He thinks to himself, it's not time yet, but when the moment is right, he will turn Dongjun into a top-tier hunter. It's Saturday, the day of the advancement exam. Around the area, things are still pretty chill. Two guys are glued to a girl group's music video like it's the most important thing ever. A group of guys are in a heated basketball match, and off to the side, one guy is locked in, laser-focused on a game of Go. Then, suddenly, the school speakers crackle on with an announcement from the administration office. It's calling for all hunters scheduled for the advancement exams to head straight to the military training ground. This message keeps looping, growing more urgent, and as it echoes through the area, everyone freezes, eyes widen, and hearts start to pound. Pace. It's finally happening. They all know what this means. This is a real-life level-up manhwa moment, time to become a corporal. And Mjun just smiles. The time has come. On a bright sunny day, the hunters are all gathered at the training grounds. Soon after, 2nd Lieutenant Kim Chae-olman of the 2nd Battalion stepped forward and began to speak, himself as their guide for the day, adding with a dry smirk he hoped they'd actually listen to him. Wasting no time, he called for a head count and told each company to report their numbers. Just then, a bus rolled up, and Kim Chae-olman instructed everyone to board in an orderly fashion. Once on board, he reminded them of what they already knew. The advancement exams were at the 105th Division, which meant they were heading to Gapyeong, where that division was stationed. Before taking his seat, he added one last piece of advice. Review the practice questions on the road. The bus was pure chaos, packed with confused weirdos and jittery hunters. Some of them were chatting about how the 4th Battalion would be joining the advancement exams today, and one guy immediately perked up, asking if that meant girls would be there. His whole mood lit up as he started hyping how he'd finally show off his skills, like a hero in a level-up manhwa, just to impress them. Both of them got all amped up about scoring phone numbers. One guy came fully loaded with cheesy tricks to impress the girls, even though getting their number was going to be a struggle. Kim and Jun were fired up and ready to go all in. After a bumpy ride full of dumb conversations and high delusions, they finally rolled into the 105th Division base in Gapyeong, Gyeonggo. Once there, they were led into written exam room 7, where the hunters took their seats and got ready to face the test. Invigilator Kang stepped up and announced the results, saying everyone had passed the written exam, except Cho Jong-wook from the 2nd Battalion of the 104th Division. All the other hunters were told to head to the practical exam room right away. Cho Jong-wook stood frozen, clearly stressing out as the others filed out around him. As soon as the room emptied, Kang went off, yelling at him for failing an exam that's supposedly easier than getting a driver's license. He called him a fool, his voice ringing loud enough to echo down the hallway. Outside, the hunters burst into laughter at the brutal chewing out. Minjun stood there with a satisfied grin, while the rest cracked up, and among them, a woman named Sununi Yoon Seo quietly watched the group go. Over in the practical exam room, Lieutenant Colonel Lee Cheolju, the official in charge of the entire advancement process, addressed the gathered hunters. He welcomed both the examinees and the examiners on behalf of the 105th Division and acknowledged the hard work it took for everyone to make it this far, setting a serious tone for what lay ahead. Lieutenant Colonel Lee Cheolju went on to explain that the purpose of the exam wasn't just to determine who deserved a promotion. It was also about fostering a spirit of friendly and fair competition between the three divisions. While he spoke, the hunters began to fidget, some already spacing out or fighting off yawns. But the moment he mentioned this year's exams included participants under a special exception, the room perked up. He named them Private First Class Kim Mjun and Private Sun Yun So from the 104th Division. Both hunters enlisted less than a year ago. Kim Mjun blinked, wondering if there was someone else beside him just to be sure. The colonel then asked if everyone was familiar with the 104th Division and warned them not to cause any drama. One hunter muttered that it was true, that you could get special treatment if you applied to the front lines with killer grades. A few dudes during his enlistment year got the same offer, but far as he knew, they all passed on it. Then, the second he realized they meant the 104th Division, his words died, and his face went slack with shock. Everyone around him looked just as floored when they saw that Kim Mjun had already achieved the rank of Private First Class. As whispers and side-eyes started, one guy couldn't help but notice how Kim Mjun seemed totally unfazed by being the center of attention. While everyone else was either curious or shocked, Minjun just looked like he wanted to get this over with. At that moment, Yun-so and Minjun briefly locked eyes, but only for a split second. The tension was thick, but nobody else seemed to notice. Then the colonel reminded everyone to bring their A-game. Then Captain Jung Sang-chol stepped up, took command of the group, and announced that they'd begin the stat tests, strength, agility, and stamina, like something from a level-up manhwa. Captain Jung Sang-chol explained the first event was the strength test, and it was dead simple. All they had to do was shove back the examiner standing before them. The captain added they had 1 minute for the task, and would be graded on a scale of 100, with full points for anyone who could move the man 10 meters. The tension in the room started to climb as he called the first challenger, Private Kim Jin-hyuk, of the 103rd Division. Jin-hyuk stepped up and gave it everything he had, but the examiner didn't budge an inch. He couldn't even make him flinch, and just like that, he was slapped with a big fat 0 and instantly disqualified. The captain firmly reminded everyone that anyone who scored under 40 was completely out of the advancement exam. That sent a shockwave of panic through the rest of the group, and it suddenly dawned on everyone just how brutal this test was going to be. Then Jang Won-ho was called. He gave it a shot, but only scraped by with 10 points disqualified. Lu was next and got 20 also out. Jang Yuna followed with a 0, and Jang Dwan wasn't much better, ending with 15, both disqualified. Then came Sun Yun So from the 104th Division. She stepped up calmly and pushed with a steady force, scoring 50 and passing the test. Everyone around her was floored, not just because she passed, but also because she was a total knockout. The moment they realized she was the daughter of the division commander, it suddenly all made sense. Strength must run in the family. A few even muttered that getting too close might be hazardous to their pride and their rib cages. Kim Mjun noticed her too, thinking she was just like him, someone who got in on a special exception. Then his name was called Kim Mjun, of the 104th Division. As he stepped forward, he told himself not to repeat his previous blunder with the red stone. This time, he had a plan. If he could blast the examiner past the 10-meter mark, he could maybe even snag some bonus points. He got into position with quiet confidence, eyes locked on his target, and then just exploded forward with pure, raw power. The examiner went flying like a rag doll, soaring the full 10 meters without a prayer of resisting. The score came in with a perfect 100. Even the examiner looked stunned, like he'd just been hit by a truck wrapped in a military uniform. The room went dead silent. Everyone was floored. Even Sun Yun So, who rarely shows emotion, was visibly surprised. Private Yu Jonghua gets disqualified with just 20 points and bursts into tears. The tension in the air was thick. Everyone's feeling the pressure, wondering why this test is so brutal. Sir Jong steps up and tells everyone to quiet down. He announces the strength stat test is over, and they'll begin the agility stat test immediately. No breaks allowed. He instructs those who've been disqualified to exit in an orderly fashion from the rear under the examiner's watch. Meanwhile, 2 guys come in dragging a netboard. A few others roll in a gun machine, and the recruits start freaking out, thinking they're about to be ventilated. Sir Jong reassures them they are not actual bullets, but just rubber ones. Still, he warns if they get hit, it is going to hurt. He tells everyone to get ready to dodge as if their lives depend on it. Kim Mjun finds this whole thing kind of exciting, like something from a level-up manhwa. Sir Jong explains, a perfect score for agility goes to those who last a full minute. Now, Seo stands prepared to start this machine. They have to stay within the zone, or else it's game over. The whole squad is on edge. Then, Sir Jong adds that, since this is an agility test, they'll also recognize anyone who tanks all the hits, but still manages to stay in for 1 minute. For the disqualification criteria, Sir Jong explains that anyone who steps outside the area in under 30 seconds or gets seriously injured will be immediately disqualified from the advancement exam. With that, he announces the start of the agility test. Right then, Dongjun walks up and calls out to Minjun. The kid looks utterly surprised, and Dongjun smirks, asking if Minjun really thought he'd get disqualified during the strength stat test. Minjun laughs awkwardly and says, of course not. Dongjun explains that all the private first classes, except for Minjun, have taken the advancement exam at least once before, so they're unlikely to get knocked out on the stat tests. However, he adds that the qualifications remain the same. It is just that the overall score standard has gone up compared to when they were still privates. That is why Dongjun's been failing his exams. Then, he gives Minjun a tip that the rubber bullets fly just as fast as real ones. So, relying on sight alone to dodge is a terrible idea. Instead, he should focus on the slightest movements of the gun to predict the bullet's path. Suddenly, Sir Jong announces that Private Yun Kitai has been disqualified and orders the examiners to escort him to the infirmary. Minjun starts thinking about how brutal the stat tests are. So many people are getting knocked out before even reaching the real combat portions. No wonder the pass rate is so low. Still, a true level-up manhwa experience has to be difficult. Then, Private First Class Gi Yongdo gets disqualified too, and Sir Jong, clearly disappointed, comments on how underwhelming this batch of hunters is. He reminds them this is nothing compared to the sergeant advancement exam happening in the room next door, wondering out loud how anyone is supposed to advance like this. Private Sun Yun So gets called next, and the whole crowd, goes dead silent. Everyone watches in awe as she dodges the rubber bullets with insane precision. Sejong shouts to the others that this is exactly how it's supposed to be done. When she finishes and earns a perfect score, everyone around gasps, completely amazed. But instead of basking in the praise, she suddenly stops and locks eyes with Kim Mjun. Now standing still, Sparky is totally thrown off. Everyone starts whispering, wondering if they're dating or something. Sparky frowns, trying to figure out what she wants. He starts overthinking that maybe she wants a compliment for her performance. Well, if that's the case, she should ask her family for applause at home. When Private First Class Kim Minjun gets called up, he steps forward confidently, still feeling Sun Yun-so's gaze fixed on him, which makes him even more irritated. But once the bullets start flying, Sparky becomes a whole different beast. Like a hero in a level-up manhwa, he charges forward, weaving through rubber bullets like he's out for a stroll. The crowd loses it, laughing and shouting in disbelief as he keeps moving, and even makes goofy faces at Sun Yun-so while ducking and spinning through the fire. She, in turn, stands frozen, totally shocked by what she's seeing. The timer crosses the 1-minute mark and Sejong, absolutely floored, finally yells out, "Ceasefire." Even a guy like him didn't expect such a smooth play from a junior, so he proudly announces that Kim Mjun has achieved a perfect score on the agility test. Everyone gathers on the field, standing straight and focused, and Sir Jang praises them for their solid performance. Later, Jang announces the start of the stamina stat test as the final part of the stat exam. The rules are simple, as they have to enter a dungeon and march through a transforming empty passageway with a strict 40-minute time limit. The instructions are broadcast over the speaker system. All participants need to get their hands stamped by the examiner stationed at the turning point inside the dungeon and make it back before time runs out. The only catch is that no one tells them how far the turning point is. It's just marching non-stop. Kim Mjun wonders if everyone is seriously pacing themselves already when they've just started. This bunch moves so carefully that it starts to feel suffocating. He thinks about whether it'll be too troublesome if he just runs ahead. That's when Sun Yun-so suddenly dashes in front of him. Mjun blinks, thinking, what does she want now? But then, excitement surges through him. It totally looks like she's challenging him, and nothing gets Mjun more fired up than a sudden race. Pumped, he kicks into gear and tries to match her speed, determined to catch up. Everyone around is weirded out, wondering what's gotten into this guy. But in a flash, Mjun finally catches up to Yun-so and flashes her a confident smile, leaving her completely taken aback. Minjun casually says there isn't much to it as he keeps pace with her, but Yun-so doesn't get what he means. He quickly brushes it off, saying he's just talking to himself. Then, without warning, the guy speeds up and dashes ahead, leaving her behind. Yun-so slows down and comes to a stop, catching her breath. That's when a memory flashes through her mind. She recalls the moment her girlfriends got all hyped after finding out she had a meeting with the battalion commander right after arriving. Back at the training center, Blondie confirmed the scuttlebutt was legit. Yun-so was the general's daughter, a rookie with god-tier stats. It was the talk of the town. Yunio actually blushed, and the girls were shocked to find a shy side under that tough exterior. They'd figured she'd be a snob, being a 2-star general's daughter, but it turned out she was totally down to earth. Even so, the girls couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy towards Yun-so. Her military life was on easy street, and it was a shoo-in she'd be the top recruit of their class. Tucked away in a corner, Yunio quietly slipped off her jacket, her mind replaying Minjun shattering the redstone. That insane moment was burned into her memory. Later, the white team snagged the win, with Yunio hoisting the blue flag in triumph. The announcer boomed that the white team won, capping the flag in a record 3 minutes and 34 seconds. For their reward, they scored a sweet 10-minute break while the blue team had to report to the coach, pronto. The white team got immediate props for smashing the center's record and was told to just chill and rest up. Blondie then piped up, giving all the credit to their ace, Yunio, admitting the rest of them barely lifted a finger. Later, when everyone was relaxing, Blondie burst in and dropped a bombshell. Someone shattered their morning record that afternoon. What really ground her gears was that the new record was a blistering 1 minute and 2 seconds. She was completely floored, wondering how anyone could possibly clock a time that insane. Blondie was totally wigging out, while Yunio just quietly absorbed the news. But the second Kim Minjun's name came up, her ears perked up instantly, especially when Blondie yelled that some guy, Minjun, from 4th Platoon, crushed the record solo. Yun-so froze, the name hitting her hard. The other girls chimed in, saying Kim Mjun was like a level-up manhwa hero, acing the shooting range and ICM training. Word got around like wildfire, and suddenly all eyes were on this up-and-coming rookie. Yunio stayed dead silent, but hearing his name again definitely struck a chord with her. Next, Blondie kept the rumor mill churning, claiming Minjun runs like greased lightning without even breaking a sweat. She was even mumbling in her sleep about how Minjun supposedly took down a hound the size of a freaking elephant. Someone finally yelled at Young to just go to sleep already. Meanwhile, Yuno's mind wandered back to her childhood. She remembered her father patting her head before he left. From then on, her one goal was to become just as strong as he was. Later, Commander Cho called her in to commend her performance over the past 4 weeks. He mentioned wanting a quick chat with the daughter of his old boss. Yuno was cool with it, so Cho asked where she planned on applying. With grades that stellar, any division would kill to have her. He wondered if she was eyeing the 107th Division, where her father, General Sun, was currently stationed. That's when Yunio, with quiet determination, asked which division Kim Mjun was in. Snapping back to the present, she knew she hadn't applied to this division for some petty reason. Yeah, she'd provoked Minjun because she was ticked off, but now she totally gets it. Why he's so mad. Yoon So's face goes beet red, thinking about all of Mjun's stunts, unsure if it's jealousy or annoyance. And then it dawns on her. Her real goal isn't number 1, but to get stronger on her own, without her father's help. She figures she should probably apologize to him later. After all, when someone that's skilled lands in your path, you should learn from them, not act childish. With that new resolve, Yoon So kicks it into high gear, booking it to the turning point, only to find that slacker weirdo casually chatting with another guy. Just then, Mjun smugly waves his stamped hand in her face, teasing that he nearly fell asleep waiting for her. That completely sets her off. She yells at the commander to just stamp her already, and the old guy is clueless about why she's so fired up. Safe to say that apology is definitely off the table now. Yuno's inner beast has officially woken up. She's all hyped, sprinting ahead to catch him while the normies are barely shuffling in. Later, the commander announces that Private First Class Kim Mjun took first place with a record time of 29 minutes. For second place, he names Yoon So with a time of 32 minutes. Jong bursts out laughing, saying Minjun nailed perfect stats again, like some kind of level-up Manhwa hero. After that, Jong tells the past hunters to grab Chow, then gather at the training grounds by 1 o'clock sharp. Later on, Yunio heads over for her jacket, only to see Mjun making a goofy face like a total dork, and she's seriously weirded out by this guy. Then, Sparky jogs ahead to catch Dong Jin. Yunio finds herself cracking a small smile, realizing she totally fell for his taunt and lost this round. With nothing more to say, she slips into her uniform and walks on. At the 105th Division base, in the second practical exam center, a mob of goblins with bat-like weapons are screeching creepily at Dong Jin, but he doesn't give a damn. The guy is definitely breaking a sweat, though, but he's tearing through those goblins. Just as one of the goblins lunges at him, Dong Jin whips out his sword, but another is creeping up from behind. He dodges the first goblin's swing with ease, then spins, kicking the one behind him and sending it flying. That second goblin isn't giving up though, and swoops in again. But Dong Jin ducks like a pro, slashing its chest mid-motion. Even so, the damn thing is still alive, and definitely pissed off. Now both are ganging up on him, giving the poor guy zero room to breathe. Up on the platform, Mjun quietly observes the scene below. He notes the second part of the practical exam, specialty weapons proficiency, is way simpler than he thought. All they really have to do is show the examiners how well they've applied the techniques learned so far in the Hunter Corps. They just have to follow the manual and that's enough for a pass. Minjun figures he can easily ace it. And as expected, most applicants chose swordsmanship for their test. Among them, Dong Jin scored the highest. Still, Mjun can't help but notice how badly the guy is struggling now, caught in a tight spot with those two goblins out for blood. In the last part of the practical exam, the ability to handle monsters, privates are required to defeat 4 hounds, while private first-class soldiers gotta take down 3 goblins with their chosen specialty weapon. This field's a dead ringer for real combat, as Dong Jin takes out the blue goblin with a chest stab, ending his round. Right then, the commander announces Dong Jin took 7 minutes and 52 seconds to clear the monster handling test. The guy's soaked in sweat, gasping for air, but he stumbles out with what little strength he has left. Meanwhile, Minjun notices Dong Jin had several chances to finish the goblins but hesitated every single time, making him wonder if the guy doesn't trust his own skills. Later, Dong Jin shuffles out and stands beside Minjun, head hung low, and obviously bummed out. When the commander calls Minjun for his turn, he doesn't want Dong Jin to feel discouraged. Besides, Minjun can't help but rock a smug look, knowing he's about to make corporal today. From here on, he plans to tear Dong Jin's bad habits to shreds and rebuild him from the ground up. Everyone's jaw drops when Minjun strolls in wielding a bat. The commander can't figure out why the guy who's been acing everything chose such a basic weapon, and he knows this one won't be a cakewalk. Minjun figures the only real requirement for this test is landing some solid hits, nothing too complicated. Right then, 3 goblins storm into the field, snarling and ready to rip him to shreds. As the goblins rush in, Minjun grips his bat tight, and in a flash, he smacks all 3 of them at once. The hit is so clean and brutal they drop in pieces, taken out in barely 4 seconds. Everyone watching is frozen, jaws on the floor, their brains short-circuiting at the sheer absurdity of what just happened. No one can believe a mere private first class just pulled this off, especially one who already aced the practical exam. Minjun casually glances over at Yunso, locking eyes with her before flashing that smug look of his just to get under her skin. Yunso glares back, thinking this guy's a total lunatic. Afterward, the commander praises everyone for their hard work on the exam, especially Kim Mjun. Now officially Corporal Kim Mjun. Commander Zhang laughs, admitting this guy's climbing the ranks so fast they keep forgetting what to call him. Zhang does mention he was a little worried since Minjun was the only one from their battalion who advanced this time. But their battalion commander is totally thrilled with the report. And with that, he gives Minjun a proud thumbs up, knowing damn well the battalion commander had never seen a private first-class score that perfectly before. Meanwhile, the entire squad erupts in cheers for Minjun, the guy who basically saved their hides, cause without him, their squad would have been toast before they even made it back. They joke around, telling him he's not allowed to turn into a bully if he ever makes sergeant, but deep down, Minjun wants to see how well everyone actually performs before deciding what kind of treatment they'll get from him. Aside from that, he pats Dongjin's shoulder, already plotting to turn his buddy into a real-life level-up Manhwa protagonist. The second they get back, Minjun's planning to start training with their specialty weapons right away. Then he senses someone behind him and turns to see who it is. He knows she handled the monsters pretty well herself, and figures she obviously has what it takes to pass the advancement exam, too. While the bus gets loaded, Seo stays outside, and Minjun is a bit confused by it. She's thinking this might finally be her chance to apologize for how she acted during the stat test. But just then, Minjun smashes his face against the window, mouthing some words that totally shake her. He warns her that if she provokes him again, she is toast. And with that, the bus takes off, leaving Eon Seo frozen with a storm of thoughts, convinced that guy is one crazy jerk. On their way, the entire bus of hunters keeps asking Minjun if there's something going on between him and Seo. The girl was checking him out all day, even during the stat test, like she's totally into him. The guys are busting Minjun's chops for having an admirer, eager for him to spill the tea. But Minjun doesn't give a damn, and doesn't look remotely interested, saying she provoked him. That's why he schooled her. Classic level-up manhwa style. The whole lot cracks up, realizing the look in her eyes was actually provocation. But that's not it. The dudes want to know more. They're itching to hear what Minjun did to the top recruit in the 104th Division. Meanwhile, Han Yun demands to know if he just shut down the girl of his dreams. Minjun finds this bunch super annoying, admitting that Eon So isn't his dream girl. Han Yun, who's totally pissed, demands to know who is, and Minjun spills that it's Lumi. Everyone tries to place the name, but it doesn't ring a bell, and they haven't seen her anywhere. One asks if she's an idol. Minjun calls Lumi the dungeon power fighter's greatest beauty. When asked if anyone knows her, the whole hunter squad eyes Minjun with disgust. Later that night, the squad is digging into fried chicken like there's no tomorrow, and more boxes keep rolling in from the lieutenant. Sergeant Cho is sure this is the first time Kim Mjun has ever looked this happy, and Minjun doesn't deny it. Cho thanks him aloud, saying it's all pretty much because of him. He's especially hyped that the guy has 3 stripes already, which means he is only a step away from becoming a sergeant. Minjun agrees with a mouthful of chicken, washing it down with a Pepsi like a champ. Just then, Sergeant Sun Ho rolls in with the drink cart, calling all second squad members to gather in the lounge immediately. Everyone knows something is up, and Sun Ho confirms it's about the report he just submitted to the admin office about their squad's second sinner. But what really matters is that thanks to a perfect score on the advancement exam, they scored some beer. Sergeant Cho and Kim leap from their seats with pure joy, refusing to let Minjun enjoy it all himself. Sun Ho butts in, saying the beer's actually a gift from the company commander to Minjun, so technically it has nothing to do with anyone else. That instantly gets the whole squad going, with everyone grumbling that Sun Ho's getting on their nerves. Sergeant Cho calls him out, saying, Sun Ho probably knew about all this from the start, which is exactly why he kept Minjun in his squad from day one. Later on, Minjun is strolling by himself, and takes the chance to summon his Nightwalker. He makes small talk with the little dude, asking if he's doing okay. Honestly, He was pretty flustered the first time it happened. Creature showed up during a summon. But now, Minjun has a clear plan. He doesn't actually need an assassin. He's got the perfect gig in mind instead. From here on out, he assigns the little one the task of gathering intel. Specifically, Minjun needs it to keep a close eye on the high-ranking officials, tail them quietly, and immediately report back on anything weird, especially anything related to demonic energy. Then suddenly, the Nightwalker lifts its tiny hand, leaving Minjun confused for a sec until he realizes the little guy is asking for a reward. With a sigh, Minjun tosses him a ball of demonic energy. The moment it snags it, the little shadow looks absolutely ecstatic, walking away like it just received a mission from heaven. Minjun warns it not to get caught, though deep down, he's a little anxious, seeing just how hyped the Nightwalker is. He knows if anyone from the squad spotted it, they'd probably trigger a full-scale emergency. Out of nowhere, Sergeant Kim appears and asks what Minjun's doing out here. The dude nearly jumps out of his skin, but he recovers quickly, laughing it off and saying he just needed some fresh air. Plus, it's been forever since he had a drink. When Kim asks if he's a lightweight, Mjun casually explains it's not quite like that. Apparently, dark mages don't get drunk the usual way. Whether it's poison or alcohol, their bodies just naturally detox it the moment it enters. Besides that, Kim congratulates Minjun for advancing, but warns him not to get too comfortable. He also tells Minjun not to show up late again, even if his tolerance is good, because the rest of the squad will have finished all the bottles by then. After that, Mjun finally exhales, feeling relieved that Sunho didn't see a thing. He knows he has to be way more careful around here. Still, the more Minjun learns about Sunho, the more he feels like this guy is a total, by-the-book soldier. Not that he has a problem with that kind of personality. The next day, the commander is raving about how Kim Mjun was practically born ready. He jokes that he was prepared to gut the whole squad if nobody passed, but one guy made it and did so with a perfect score. Another officer adds that Corporal Kim Mjun just set a new 4-second record in the ability to handle monsters test. This makes the commander laugh, remembering how he once figured that Commander Choi was nuts for hyping this kid up. But Minjun has demolished every expectation. He even handled the middle bat situation all by himself. Choi brings up how Minjun was the first to dive in during the oil reserve emergency, and Lee points out that this kid made corporal in just 1 month, a feat straight out of a level-up manhwa. They all agree this guy doesn't just meet expectations, he completely shatters them. It won't be long before the whole Hunter Corps is watching him. This makes Choi realize that Lee is suggesting the Hunter Special Forces Brigade, and he asks if Minjun can really manage something that big. But Lee is confident. He says Minjun is the one. He can just feel it. He's seen plenty of hunters in his time. Some were even called legends within the Hunter Corps, but this kid might be on a whole other level. Maybe a new kind of monster is about to be born in the Corps. Later, out in the desert, a horde of lizard monsters, goblins, and orcs fill the horizon. In the middle of it all stands Minjun, coolly gripping his bat, just waiting for them to get closer. Because that's when the real party starts. Inside the dorm, the dudes are drinking like there's no tomorrow. One guy can't even stand up straight. That's when Minjun walks in, spotting his squad mates, completely hammered in the corner. One dude, already nursing a future hangover, slurs out a question asking if Minjun's okay. Sparky just flashes a smug grin, and says he's perfectly fine, leaving the guy totally stunned. He just can't believe that after chugging so much, Minjun is still standing tall without a single wobble. He straight up calls him an absolute monster. Just then, Sunho strolls in from behind, and Minjun casually asks if he's doing alright. The drunk dude stumbles into a salute for Sergeant Lee, who says he's fine after sweating it all out. Minjun flashes a smile as he checks out Sunho's ripped physique, thinking this guy is the definition of a true soldier. On top of that, Sunho asks if the kid has hit the gym yet, and Minjun says he hasn't gotten the chance. Sunho tells him to start using the gym now that he's a corporal. He adds that the VR device in their squad is actually pretty sick, so Minjun should give it a shot. The second he hears VR device, Minjun gets a jolt of excitement. Finally, time to check it out, and he is fired up. First things first, he's gotta pick a monster. He scrolls through and selects the orc, but when it comes to the number of orcs, Minjun goes completely nuts. He maxes it out to around 30. To him, that still feels way too low. He's trying to get that full-on level-up manhwa vibe, like he's in the Warrior series. Then it's time to pick his weapon, and Sparky is absolutely losing his mind over how awesome the options are. After locking in his choices, he steps into the VR room, fully geared up, clutching a bat in his hand, ready to bring the pain. It's time to start the battle, and Minjun finds himself dropped into a desert setting, pumped and ready to take on some monsters. The dude is loving the CGI and graphics, which look almost too real. Orcs start popping up everywhere, geared up to wreak havoc. But Sparky isn't fazed. He swings his bat and nails his first home run, sending an orc flying. The impact feels incredible, and Minjun is hooked from the very first swing. He picks up the pace, smashing through orcs like it's nothing, totally in the zone. The way the bat feels in his hands makes him grin, and he yells for the monsters to bring it on. In just a few seconds, it's all over, with only one survivor, Minjun. But that was way too easy. 30 orcs wasn't even close to satisfying. So, he dials things up and selects 30 goblins, 30 golems, and 30 lizardmen to crank up the heat. Now, there are 90 monsters of 3 different types ready to tear him apart. But Minjun is just getting warmed up. With his bat in hand and a wild grin on his face, he asks if they've all gathered together. Once they lunge at him, he casually counts down from 3 and charges in like a beast, ready to smash every last one of them into the ground with pure brute force. This maniac is smashing monsters left and right without pausing, beating them to a pulp. The battle wraps up after he eliminates all the monsters, and the simulation ends. Taking off his gear, Minjun is beyond impressed with the VR room system, calling it the next best thing since Dungeon Power Fighter. Just then, a new window pops up, revealing that he unlocked a skill. Basic blunt weapon handling. At first he's stunned, but then he checks the screen, which says the skill boosts his proficiency with blunt weapons. Minjun is totally pumped to see this, especially since he didn't expect to get weapon skills just like that. It's like a level-up manhwa. He can skip grinding in dungeons to get new skills. He decides to mess around in the VR room more, using different weapons to up his game. Suddenly, he bumps into Dongjin, who looks like he just saw a ghost. When asked, Dongjin, pale as a sheet, just points at the simulation battle results. He's in total shock that this guy soloed 30 goblins, 30 orcs, and 30 lizardmen. Minjun is annoyed the VR room is broadcasting his results so openly. Dongjin demands to know if he really wiped them all out. Minjun doesn't know what to say at first, but then he gets an idea. With a straight face like he's Dongjin's superior, Minjun tells him they need to chat in the gym. Dongjin, sweating bullets, nervously asks why, and Minjun flashes a sly grin, saying it's training time. Without waiting for an answer, he shoves the poor guy into the gym. Even as Dongjin whines about being hungover, Minjun says it's perfect, since sweating it out will help. After they head inside, Kim walks in and is completely floored by the results Minjun just pulled off. Then Kim Gwangshik walks in, asking where everyone is, and specifically, where Minjun went. A soldier quickly explains that most of the team went to storage for snow removal tools, but he accidentally calls Minjun Corporal, which he shouldn't have said in front of Gwangshik, since Minjun isn't officially promoted yet. Realizing the slip-up, he panics and rushes off to get someone to call Minjun, saying the platoon commander is looking for him. Meanwhile, Gwangshik stumbles upon a group of soldiers huddled together, clearly chilling and having fun. Confused, he asks what's going on. They casually welcome him and explain they're placing a bet a full month's salary on how soon Minjun will get promoted to sergeant. Everyone has a prediction. 6 months, 8 months, over a year. Gwangshik is stunned by how seriously they're taking this, and asks why they're always making these bets. Minjun laughs at Young-han's 6-month prediction, calling it insane and impossible, while the others join in, teasing and loving the moment. Jong gets fired up, yelling that Minjun isn't just some average guy, he's on a completely different level. Minjun teases him for being all worked up, and Jong snaps back, saying he has no regrets, and warns everyone not to back out later. The group erupts in laughter and locks in the bet, each throwing in their predictions with total confidence. Then Gwangshik steps in and boldly bets on just 1 month, shocking everyone into silence. Meanwhile, Minjun is in the gym feeling a little down because he's been training hard for days but hasn't seen any improvement in his stats. He starts wondering if all that effort was just a total waste of time. Then he remembers that even something as annoying as the Isgard incident ended up giving him a passive skill. One of his abilities boosts his strength by 150%. He starts wishing he had a skill like Returned Hero's Strength, which scales with stat growth. Just then, a notification pops up saying he's unlocked a new skill, a basic one, called Power, and it gives him a 5-point boost to his strength stat. Even though it's simple, he's fired up, knowing he can upgrade it later. As Minjun catches his breath, a fellow soldier shows up and tells him the platoon commander is looking for him. Minjun thanks him and heads out. The soldier just watches him leave, a little confused by how calm and focused Minjun seems today. Like something is off. When Minjun arrives at the administrative office, he salutes and reports in as ordered. Kim Minchul greets him, leading him to the counseling office for a casual chat, asking how corporal life is treating him since it's been almost a week. Minjun replies that everything is going great, Kim Mjun congratulates him on the promotion and thanks him again for handling the Middlebats incident. Minjun just shrugs it off, saying it was nothing. Then Kim Mjun gets to the real reason for the summons. He hands Minjun an official certificate, a special award from the battalion commander. It's for handling the incident and acing his promotion exam. Kim Mjun jokes that Minjun shouldn't be disappointed by the casual handover, explaining that in the Hunter Corps, they prefer to skip too many formal events. The certificate is an award of excellence signed by Colonel Lee Janbium, officially recognizing Minjun's outstanding service. Plus, Kim Mjun mentions that the award will count toward his experience. Minjun glances aside, wondering if this means he might get another special promotion later. Kim Mjun hesitantly agrees, maybe, but also points out this award is rare, and not many hunters receive one this early, let alone more than once. Minjun lights up like the hero of a level-up manhwa, tossing out the idea that if he earned 10 awards, he could land another promotion. He blurts it out like it's a stamp card deal, joking about if awards are like fried chicken coupons, or if there's a buy one get one free event. Kim Mjun just gives him a blank stare and questions if Minjun was even listening. A few days later, the soldiers are lined up at attention, weapons ready. They've been assigned to clear a dungeon, and it's their next real mission. Platoon Commander Kim Mjun reminds them if they stick to their training, they'll get through it safely without any injuries. Today's dungeon is known as the Monster Rat Nest, or more commonly, the sewers. Minjun stands with his squad, Jong Hyun and Lee Jong Jin, along with other squad members like Jin Cholho. Their COs are also present, including First Lieutenant Kim Chimin, Sergeant Lee Sun Ho, and Sergeant First Class Kim Mi. The Monster Rat Dungeon isn't considered extremely dangerous, but it's still serious, because over 200 monster rats usually spawn inside. On top of that, the narrow tunnels make using guns tough. So, even though it's not a high-ranking dungeon, it still demands full focus and tight teamwork for a safe clear. What makes this one trickier is that there's only one exit, besides the entrance. So, the plan is to trap the rats, by funneling them all through that single route. Kim Mjun tells everyone to get in position and prep the bait. They place it near the second entrance to lure the rats in. The dungeon stinks horribly, so all soldiers wear the special gas masks issued by the Hunter Corps. A soldier, Zhang Shanghe, gripes about the stench and the rats, saying the monsters feed on nasty junk like rotten bananas, which just makes the reek even worse. Though it's hard to breathe and move correctly, the team powers through, spreading out as much bait as possible to start the plan. The soldiers spot a huge swarm of monster rats charging from the front entrance, and everyone snaps into position for the fight. The commander barks for the troops to form a line at the entrance and tells the lower-ranked guys to fall back with the vice commander for safety. Some soldiers start cracking jokes, placing bets on who can bag the most monster rats, like it's a level-up manhwa quest. Loser buys snacks at the PX. They even ask the squad commander if he's in on the action. Despite the banter, they stay sharp, as the commander reminds them not to lose their focus and to hold the line no matter what. The plan is to meet the rats head-on, without breaking formation. Up front, Corporal Kim Mjun, from 2nd Platoon, 3rd Squad, is fiercely tearing through rats, while right next to him, Corporal Jong Hyun from 2nd Platoon, 2nd Squad, solidly holds his ground. Their squad leader, Sergeant Lee Sung Ho, is guiding them through the mayhem. At the same time, Sergeant Kim Jong Tai from the 4th Squad and Sergeant Cho Tai Wook from the 3rd Squad are deep in the fray, cutting down rats with heavy strikes. Corporal Kim Gwang Shik from the 3rd Squad is also fighting hard, making sure that no rats can slip past him. As the battle rages, the officers start taking notice. Sergeant First Class Kim Mi, Vice Commander of 2nd Platoon, and First Lieutenant Kim Cholman, the overall commander, both see the troops are performing well, especially a few soldiers who are clearly a cut above, dropping rats before they can even breach the front line. It just goes to show how talented they are, proving their training and all that hard work is finally paying off. Even Private First Class Lee Dong-jin, from 2nd Platoon, 2nd Squad is finally showcasing his special training and is no longer lagging behind. Suddenly, a soldier shouts for help, and another immediately responds, leaping into action without hesitation. But just then, more monster rats swarm in from the rear. The soldiers quickly yell, a warning that they're getting hit from the back. The commander orders the 1st and 4th Squads to cover the rear entrance, and tells the privates to fall back slowly, using their shields for cover. He warns them not to overdo it, or break their formation, because they're almost there. Just a little further, but something feels wrong. Through his gas mask, Gwang Shik senses that something is off. He realizes too late that the real danger is coming, not from the front, but from below. An irregular monster starts to surface. and Guangxik sees it's massive, having gorged on the other rats, and its size is absolutely horrifying. Frozen solid by fear, Guangxik can't move a muscle. Li Dongjin tries to yell, but finds himself just as paralyzed. He finally screams at Guangxik to get out of there, begging him to run, to move, to do anything, but it's already too late. Then Kim Mjun looks closer, and spots something weird in the monster's eyes. They seem completely blank, just empty voids, and there's no fear in them, and that's when it hits Minjun. The truth. It's overflowing with demonic energy. Meanwhile, Li Dongjin gets praised for acting quickly to save Guangxik. Right then, soldiers from behind yell at Myun that it's too dangerous and order him to fall back. They order all corporals to follow, telling the squad to stay ready. Kim and Jun just smirk, because while all that is happening, he's secretly absorbing the demonic purple energy through its eyes. A dangerous and mysterious power. He's a bit worried someone might see, since gaining demonic energy could raise suspicions or be seen as dangerous. That's why he sarcastically thanks Li Dongjin, since Dongjin's bold move perfectly distracted everyone, helping Myun absorb the energy unseen. Then a message appears, like in a level-up manhwa, saying he's absorbed demonic energy, and his demonic energy stat has increased by 1. Minjun now realizes just how much power the monster held, and he vows to use that energy for the right reasons. Jong admits defeat, clearly impressed. Meanwhile, Michul Kim confirms it was an irregular monster as the report comes in. All platoon members have now withdrawn from the dungeon. Only one irregular monster was confirmed, taken down by a single platoon member. Even though things have calmed down, buzzing mosquitoes and thick tension remind them that nothing on the front lines is ever normal. Jong walks up to Minjun, sincerely thanking him for the save, and admitting he totally froze when he first saw that monster. Myun brushes it off, apologizing for acting without orders, but John quickly reassures him there's no need to be sorry. It was an emergency, and Minjun's quick thinking probably saved both Guangxik and Dongjin from real harm. After that, Michul Kim checks in on Myun, asking if he's hurt. Myun confidently replies that he's fine, standing tall. As Minjun lets out a breath, Kim Michul quietly warns him they'll need a private chat back at camp. Jong watches this exchange, noting the platoon commander doesn't look pleased. Meanwhile, updates crackle through the comms. All evacuated members have only minor injuries, and Dongjin already completed his checkup and is heading back to camp. Guangxik, despite a few bruises on his head, should fully recover and return by tomorrow. The second platoon is called to attention due to the unexpected events, and the dungeon clearance operation is officially called off. Everyone is ordered to check their gear and prepare for departure. Without hesitation, the squad responds in unison. Later, at the admin office, Myun is called in for the report. He's told to write down exactly how he beat the irregular monster, but Minjun just pauses, unsure what to write. He jokingly thinks about saying he tried his shield, and when that didn't work, he just punched it, though no one would believe a story from a level-up manhwa like that. Michul Kim admits he couldn't see everything clearly because his vision was blocked, but he still asks if Minjun really beat it with just his fist. Minjun is unsure how to respond, and says the monster was full of energy. He didn't have time to think. Changing the subject, Michul Kim asks about Minjun's stats, and Minjun replies his strength is 65 and agility is 60. Hearing this, Michul Kim's jaw drops, noting that even as a first lieutenant, his own stats are barely above average at 40. He sees Minjun's stats are double a sergeant's, like in a level-up manhwa, and mutters in disbelief. He thinks that with numbers like that, Minjun could have easily gotten into the Hunter Military Academy. It feels like such a missed opportunity, since Kim recalls his record shows that Minjun dropped out of high school, which would have made getting in tough. Still, he tells Minjun if he ever wants to become an officer, he should consider getting his GED and applying to a university. He adds that once Minjun makes staff sergeant, he can travel for classes or take them online, and even offers to check out the process for him. Minjun admits he doesn't really enjoy studying and feels it's enough to advance through his own achievements. After hearing that, Michul Kim respects his decision and says he won't push him, but he asks Minjun to just let him know if he ever changes his mind. Then, Minjun thanks Michul Kim, who tells him he'll finish the report and to get some rest, promising not to forget what Minjun did today. Minjun salutes and turns to leave.